Okay, so if we want to take this and turn it into this, we've got a lot of work to do. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our database. So I have a real basic database here. This is probably what you'll have as well. Just a user table and a migration table. But if we want to be able to add suggestions to our app, we need obviously a suggestion table. So let's create one now. And suggestion table is going to hold the user ID of who is submitting the suggestion, and it's going to hold the number of votes and the status and a description, and that will probably, oh, and we need a title. That should probably be enough for now. So we'll say, I just like to put in 10 fields to start, and then you don't have to use all 10 fields, but if you don't add enough fields, then you have to go up here and add more fields. So I always do more than I think I need. So I need an ID field, a title field, a description field. Actually, I want to move these. I like to have my user ID field be second. I like all my ID fields up at the top. So ID, user ID, title, description, number of votes, and I also like to add a updated at and a created at field. And these are just fields that will automatically be updated whenever I create or update the record. So the ID field will be an integer, and we'll have it be primary with auto increment. User ID is going to be a index, and title will be a varchar. We'll say 100. Description, we'll do a text area, a text. And vote count, I think we can probably do, let's do a medium. Yeah, that should be, small n should be big enough. That's 32,000. In fact, we can even make it a, unsigned. That'll make it up to 64,000 votes allowed. So we'll say save, and we have a suggestion table now. So I did say this is going to be more of an advanced series on Yii, so I want to show you something that is really important when working in a team environment, especially when you're creating database tables or modifying things in the database. You want to create migration files, and migration files are a way to tell your other developers what database tables to create or modify. So I've created a suggestion table now, and I need to create a migration for that. Now, migrations get stored in the console directory under migrations, and we have one migration there already, which just creates a user table. So now our other developers, the other team members, can run the migration command, and they'll be able to create a user table automatically. But we need to create one for the suggestion table. So we're going to go to our command line again, and we just type in Yii migrate create and then we give it a name. So I'm going to call it suggestion table, and it says create new migration, yes, and now it's created. So now I need to actually go into the suggestion table migration file, which was just created, and I need to tell it to actually create the table. So the way I like to do this is short and simple. Just do this, execute, and execute allows you to run any kind of SQL. And then I go to my phpMyAdmin and I do a structure and export. And I do a SQL is correct, but I do a custom, and I just want the output to be as text, and I like to just do the structure. And I just copy this create tables structure syntax. In fact, I'm going to copy all this, and I'll paste that in. And that's all we need to do for the migration step. Now, if I were another developer and I had pulled in the code changes that we've done up to this point, I would need to run the migration command. So I would say Yii migrate, and I would say yes. And if I didn't already have that suggestion table, that would have created it for me. Now, I just realized we forgot a field in our suggestion table, and that's actually okay because it's going to show you why migrations are so important. So we forgot the status field. We need to be able to have statuses for our suggestions. So let's go ahead and add that. And I think I'm going to want to add that right after description. Status, let's just make it an integer for now. And I'm going to copy that SQL, and I'm going to create another migration. Add status to suggestion. Set. So now the developers will have the suggestion table and the status field as well. So we now have enough to start fleshing out our application. Why don't we go ahead and start by displaying the suggestions on our page. So we'll add a couple example suggestions to our database first. And I'm just going to say user ID 1. This is an example suggestion. This is a description. And we'll say status is 1. We don't really have statuses defined yet as far as what 1 means, but that's okay. And we'll say boat count is 5. And let's create another one. And this will be from user ID 2 with title. This is another suggestion here. And another description here. The status will be 3. Boat count will be 2. Alright, so we have 2 suggestions now. Let's get them onto our page. Let's use G. G is your friend. Get used to it, love it, explore everything it does because it's going to help you out a lot. So in this case, we're just going to create a controller. So I'll click Start. And it wants a controller class, which is going to be in the form of a namespace controller. So we'll say app. Actually, we need to do front end controllers, and we'll say suggestion controller. And we only want an index ID, an index action right now. The view path we can leave alone. So it's going to create our controller and it's going to create the first view. So we'll say generate. And now we can visit suggestion/index. And this is the default text in that action. So let's open that up. And here's the controller, which is real basic. Just one action, and it renders the index view. And here is the view. So you can see real quickly, we just get rid of that, and we start displaying all of our suggestions on this page. But before we can do that, we need to create a model, right, for the suggestion table. So let's use G again. And we'll do a model generator. And we'll say suggestion. And we do want it to make a suggestion model. And the namespace should be common models. Now we could put it in front end models, but then it wouldn't be available to our backend. So most of the models that we create, we're going to put in the common namespace. So click preview. You can see it's going to go in the common directory, or the common app, I should say, and we can generate it. And it's done. So now that that model is available to us, let's use Yii's list view widget. Let's pull that up. So we have a detailed view, we have a list view, and we have a grid view. What we want to use in this case is a list view, which allows us to display a list of items. And the list view is very customizable, so it'll work really well for displaying something along the lines of this. So to get a list view working, we need a data provider, and that can be either an array of data, it can be a data from a database. So I need to add all of this to my view. And this is actually not the best thing to do, but we're going to start with this, and then I'll modify it to use best practices. But first, we're going to change this to suggestion, and in order to resolve the path to the suggestion model, we need to add a use statement. And so what this should do is find all suggestion records and create a data provider from that, and then send that to our list view. And it's going to use a _post view to render each item in our list. So we need to create that _post file. In fact, let's call it _suggestion. And just to make sure it's working, let's say hello world. We'll load our application. So you can see there's 2 entries. So it does appear to be pulling from the database, because that's how many we had in there. So at this point we can start printing out some of the data from each suggestion. We can do that with a PHP echo model title. That would give us the title for each one. And let's put a break just for now. And so there's our 2 suggestions. So I think we'll wrap up the video. So this is pretty basic, but I think we'll wrap this video up, and in the next one we will make this look a lot nicer, and we'll include descriptions and probably a vote button as well for each one.